Oh, the webcam on here is perfect.
Okay, awesome.
All right, and we are live on Facebook. You can see us on Facebook and on YouTube this time. Is your microphone working?
Yeah, we're good. Yeah.
All right. We're getting ready to do episode 2 of Homegirls, which is going to be on hydrostatic testing. So let's pull up our scripts. And I think everyone can see us. Go for YouTube. Almost, let me scoot up a little closer for Facebook. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay. You can see all of us, or at least the side of my face. Cool. Okay. And we might have to shoot the intro a few times because I have to read it perfectly.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
All right, so let's go ahead and get started.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Good?
Yeah.
For thousands of years, city dwellers put up with defective, often vile, sanitary arrangements, wallowing in rubbish and filth. They certainly had the power to remove. For the occasional task of removal could hardly have been more loathsome, that walking and breathing and constant presence of such odor. If one had any sufficient explanation of this indifference to dirt and odor that are repulsive to many animals, even pigs, who take pains to keep themselves and their layers clean, one might also have a clue to the slow and fitful nature of technological improvement itself in the 5 millennia that followed the birth of the city. What do you think of that one?
I think that was good.
Good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So that quote was kind of academically gross.
Yeah.
What it was talking about was how people basically used to just live in waste.
Yeah,
Their own waste. Yeah, that's nasty. That nasty. Their own waste and animal waste and trash. So not just like, yeah, it's just gross.
Yeah.
Which leads us perfectly into our topic today. So, hi, I'm Mary.
And I'm Isis.
And we're the Homegirls. Today we're talking about hydrostatic testing. Quick definition. Hydrostatic testing in a residential home involves flushing water through a home's underground waste pipe to check for leaks. I want to make a quick note here. We will be talking about septic systems in a later episode. This episode focuses mainly on sewer systems that connect to a main city sewage line. So very different than septic.
Yeah.
Septic's a completely different topic for a different day. If you're eating, it's probably best if you finish your meal before this episode. There's going to be a lot of toilet talk.
A lot of toilet talk.
Yeah. To really explore hydrostatic testing, we need to talk about the history of sewage management in cities. So get started with that.
All
right, awesome. So indoor plumbing to move water in and around a home has been around since the time of the Romans. Using plumbing, however, to remove waste, that is a more recent invention. So lucky for us, flush toilets have been around since the 1590s, but they were very primitive and they, just by statistic, more likely to explode.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Then actually flush the waste down. So instead of sending the waste down, they were more likely to send the waste back up. Yeah. And so not many people had them. This is the 1590s people. Queen Elizabeth I is Queen of England. She actually had one in one of her palaces.
Ooh.
Yeah, installed for her only, so she was the only one allowed to use it.
Nice. Smart.
But yeah, nobody was really living in the United States other than Native Americans in the 1590s, and obviously they didn't have toilets. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have to go to Europe for the history of waste removal. So yes, the Queen of England had a toilet in 1590s, but that really doesn't mean anyone else did. Most people, including the really wealthy, still used chamber pots, which I won't go into great detail about how those are used. I'm going to assume you know how those are used. And then they would throw their waste either in some sort of cesspit if they lived in a castle or a palace, like they'd have a moat where waste would go, and it would just decompose, which is a good segue into our septic episode. Or they'd throw it out into the street, which brings us back to the intro. Or they would throw it into moving water.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's really gross.
Good job, humanity. So you're going to laugh at this. In the 1800s, there's an Englishman named Thomas Crapper.
Nice.
Yeah. That's his real name. He didn't change his name. His name was legit Thomas Crapper, and he invented the modern toilet.
Wow.
So have you ever been into like an old fashioned house where they have that like a toilet and it has like a tank on top and you have to like pull a cord?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right? That's the toilet he invented. And that elevated cistern, which we have on our toilets now, only they're
It's
connected.
inside,
Yeah,
right?
it's connected. It had the pull chain, and the pull chain activated the water and gravity forced waste down. And then the U-bend kind of helped keep waste from coming back up.
Okay.
Yeah.
No exploding.
Yeah, no exploding. That U-bend's important because it kind of it creates almost like a neutral zone. Once
Okay.
all the waste flows through that U-bend, it goes out.
Nice.
So, yeah. So it fixed the problem of the exploding toilets, but it made the city pipe system a lot worse. Now, I want to do a quick aside here. We don't call a toilet the crapper because of Thomas Crapper. That is an old wives' tale.
I was thinking that. I was like, is that why?
No, that is not why we call the toilet the crapper. I tried to look up, use the dictionary and look up the source of the slang crapper for the toilet, but I couldn't find it. It just is a coincidence that the guy who invented the toilet was named Crapper.
That's weird.
Yeah, I know. So again, good job, humanity. So now it is 1850s. We have toilets that aren't going to explode. So the rich are like, yeah, I want that because I'm tired of tossing my waste outside.
Yeah.
Right. So more and more homes, have them installed. And unfortunately, the city sewer system could not support this sudden influx of human waste. So prior to that, the sewers were only there for rainwater collection.
Oh, okay.
Remember that? I don't know if you ever saw Les Miserables, like the play.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Jean Valjean's like going through the sewer. It's like really gross. Well, that sewer, that was 1830s Paris. It was used to move water out of the city, and it would have been full of waste only because people were pouring waste into the road, and then it was flowing into the sewer.
Okay, so the water was flowing in.
Exactly. The difference now is waste is flowing directly into the sewer, so you're having more waste and less water.
Okay.
So the city pipes were getting clogged and making the city smell, as you would imagine.
Ew.
And to fix this, big cities hired men whose job it was to crawl through the sewer pipes and unclog the sewers.
No.
Yeah, I know.
I'm so sorry for them.
Apparently they got really wealthy. Don't feel bad for them. They got really wealthy because they would find jewelry and other household items that got flushed down the toilet.
Okay, so it had benefits.
Yeah, hopefully no giant alligators, right?
Yeah.
So, but the truth is human beings can only work so quick. And the waste production was quicker than the guys who cleaned it out. This is so gross, I'm sorry. So the city started to stink. And in 1858, London experienced what went down in history as the Great Stink of London.
Oh my God.
So the city smelled so bad.
I can't.
I know.
That's crazy.
Yeah, the 1858 was a banner year in London because it smelled like poop all the time. So actually, the next year, London started laying a modern sewer system. They were like, never again, never forget the Great Stink of London. We're laying a sewer system.
Thank God.
Yeah. Chicago is actually ahead of London. In 1855, Chicago laid the first modern city sewer system. And New York laid theirs. It took a really long time. New York took from 1850 to 1902 to finish their sewer system.
Oh my God, so that's like 50 plus years?
Yeah, so that means there were still boroughs in New York there. They were just dumping their waste into, the river or the street.
Oh
you also had waste collectors, people with carts who you could give them your waste and they'd cart them away.
Oh, okay.
And now Houston, because we're so new, we were basically the Wild West for a really long time and pretty primitive, still dumping the waste into the streets. We're having waste collectors. And our sewer system was not completed until the 1920s.
Wow.
Yeah. But because it's such a late sewer system, it is considered one of the better systems. In 1950, now that we're all confused here. So Houston completed their sewer system in the 1920s. In the 1950s, they laid cast iron pipes. They replaced their sewer system with cast iron pipes in the city of Houston.
Oh, okay.
And we'll talk about the ramifications of that. because it was universally acknowledged during the time of sewer innovation that cast iron pipes were the best candidates for sewage removal.
Yeah.
They had a great reputation as water movers. So they were really good at moving water. And Louis XIV, when he built his palace at Versailles, actually put cast iron pipes through the whole garden because, you know, he had an extensive system of like big fountains and flowers that needed sprinkler system. And that's in the 17th century. So that's the 1600s.
Yeah.
He was already using cast iron pipes to move water around Versailles. Philadelphia was actually the first American city to use cast iron pipes as water movers in 1810. Yeah. So again, that's just for water, not for human waste. Yeah.
Just water.
Yeah. And Isis will talk more about the cast iron pipe in her section. But first, what about the history of hydrostatic testing specifically? I basically found no information on who came up with or invented hydrostatic testing. It seems to have just sprung from
somewhere.
Trial and error, yeah. When I Googled hydrostatic testing, I found two things. Hydrostatic testing used in oil and gas, which is very different from what's being done in the home application. So oil and gas, they use hydrostatic testing a lot to test the pressure in their natural gas lines and their oil lines.
Oh.
That's not what we're doing here in a house. It's almost the same concept, but we're testing a very different thing. The other thing I found when I Googled hydrostatic testing is how it can make your house explode. So,
oh my God.
Yeah, we're not going to worry about oil and gas application in this progress, but we will be addressing the exploding home situation later on in my next section. So now that we know the history of city sewer systems, how does this all apply to the modern home and the hydrostatic test? So I'm going to hand it over to Isis, who will take us on an exploration of the cast iron pipe and its modern counterparts.
Okay. So today I'll be talking about 3 different types of pipes, and those pipes are the PVC pipe, ABS pipe, and our lovely friend, the cast iron pipe. So I'm going to start off by talking about PVC and ABS, and I'll save the cast iron for last. So the first type of pipe I'll be talking about is a PVC pipe, and PVC pipes are made out of plastic, and they're usually used for cold water and are typically used to carry water from the main water supply directly into the home, but it can also be used for waste removal as well. They are easy to install, lightweight, strong, durable, and easily recyclable. So they're really cost efficient and sustainable. PVC pipes have a smooth surface, and this encourages a faster water flow because there isn't a lot of friction happening as compared to like the cast iron pipe. So that's correct, right?
Yeah.
Now, PVC pipes are manufactured by extrusion of raw material PVC and generally follow the same steps of typical pipe extrusion. And if you don't know what pipe extrusion is, that's basically a process where a material is melted and formed into a continuous shape that then may be cross-sectioned. So how are they made? So the first step of pipe extrusion for PVC is the feeding of raw material pellets, powder into the PVC twin screw extruder.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, it's really, really complicated. The second step is melting and heating in multiple extruder zones. The third step is extruding through a die to shape it into the pipe, and then the cooling of the shaped pipe. So then the last step would just be cutting the PVC into like their desired lengths. And the process is actually the same for ABS. And the difference between them is basically the material. So ABS pipes are made with something called BPA, and PVC is not. And BPA is basically just an industrial chemical that is used to make certain types of plastics and resins.
And it's a carcinogen too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unlike PVC pipes, ABS pipes are mainly used for waste removal. So waste removal, your drain, and they're mostly used in your restroom. And like I said earlier, ABC and PVC pipes are both made out of plastic. So how can you tell the difference? And that's pretty simple. ABS pipes are usually black and PVC pipes are white. So both of these pipes work well, but the installation process is different for both. ABS pipes are actually easier to install compared to the PVC pipes, but ABS pipes are more likely to deform if they're exposed to sun because of the black in color. So now I'll get into the cast iron pipe. as we know, the cast iron pipes are commonly used for sewage and waste drainage. And they're highly resistant to abrasion, which is why they were used for drain and sewage. And they're also really durable, so they don't react to most chemicals, and they won't melt or burn in like extreme conditions. And they have a very long lifespan. So cast iron pipes are also very versatile. And apparently they have a wide range of jointing methods. So you could like connect different types of pipes to them.
Yeah, you can connect plastic, unlike galvanized where you can't have any connection because they're not friends with anyone. ABS and PVC can be connected. And you can also connect cement pipes and even ceramic.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which we don't have any of that here in Houston.
Nope. So while these all sound like great advantages, the cast pipe does have its disadvantages as well. So cast iron pipes are really, really heavy, which makes it a lot harder to install compared to ABS and PVC. And because of its weight, they have to be braced really well to make sure that it won't fall out of place, like during extreme weather conditions or if there's construction nearby. So like I said earlier, they're really strong and durable, but they're also quite brittle. So if you were to accidentally hit a cast iron pipe, it will easily break.
Which makes no sense. Like, how can you be really strong and then like also?
Yeah, I don't get that. How can you be strong and durable but brittle too? So this is why cast iron pipes are mainly used for sewage purposes. And another disadvantage is that the cast iron pipe is much, much more expensive than PVC and ABS. So now, how are cast iron pipes made? Well, cast iron pipes are manufactured by something called, there's actually 3 different methods to making them.
Ooh.
So the first one is called the vertical pit method. The second one is the horizontal method. And the third one, I might pronounce this wrong, so don't hate on me. But it's a centrifugal method.
Oh, centrifugal.
Oh, centrifugal.
Centrifugal, which means they spin it around really fast.
Yeah. So I'll start off with the first one, which is the vertical pit method. So basically, in that method, a mold is made by ramming sand around a pattern and drying the mold in an oven. And then a core is inserted in the mold and molten iron is poured between the core and the mold. And that's the first method. In the horizontal method, a machine is used to ram sand around horizontal molds that have core bars running through them. And then the molten iron is poured into the molds from multiple lipped ladle designed to draw iron from the bottom to eliminate the introduction of impurities.
You look really unsure about the situation.
I got this off a website. We'll source it. There's a lot of words I don't know. All right, and now the last method is the centrifugal method. And in this method, sand-lined molds are used that are placed horizontally in centrifugal casting machines. And while the mold revolves, so it spins, an exact quantity of molten iron is introduced, which, by action of the speed of rotation, distributes itself on the walls of the mold to produce the pipe within a few seconds. So yeah.
Perfect. So the interesting thing, though, is that each pipe has its pros and cons and how it delivers waste, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're going to delve into now. So, and lucky for you, if you are in Houston and you would like to know more about cast iron pipes, we do a class on cast iron pipes, a CE 1 credit hour for Trek that can be for home inspectors or for real estate agents. And that is actually what I'm basing our next part on. So why are cast iron pipes so bad? Yeah. So now, as EC has pointed out, they're really strong, but also really brittle, which is just stupid. Like, try not to be so lame, cast iron pipe.
Makes no sense to me.
Here in Houston, it's most often found in homes built before the 1980s. Although, again, depending on where you live in the United States, different building materials, different ages. But if you're here in Houston, before the 1980s is generally the rule of thumb. Or, caveat, or if you're building in the city of Houston. So really in Beltway 8, and then definitely in 610, Beltway 610. So essentially, as the cast iron pipe ages, rust builds up inside of them, making the inside of the pipe smaller and smaller. Because we have really hard water here, and that hard water reacts with our waste. And when I say waste, there's a mixture of things coming down this waste pipe. Not only human waste, but also kitchen waste, so your dishwasher or your sink, and shower waste, so from your shower or bathtub. Yeah. So it's a variety of waste here, people. Don't just go straight to the gross stuff. And the water here in Houston is very hard, and when it mixes with the iron, essentially with the cast iron, it creates that rust material. Okay, so if you live not just in Houston, but any state that has hard water, that's the issue with the cast iron pipe.
So hard water
is the enemy. Yeah. This frequent water flow eats away the bottom of the pipe, and that's called channeling. So occasionally, actually not occasionally, oftentimes when they're doing an excavation on the pipe, say you're remodeling an old home and you need to get the sewer pipes redone, and they've opened up the slab to do the excavation of the cast iron pipe, the pipe will look fine when they open it up, but when they go to pick it up, they realize that there is no bottom of the pipe. It's been completely eaten out by the hard water, and that's called channeling. Now, the erosion of these pipes through the channeling and the buildup of rust and waste material can cause clogs and breakages within the pipe.
Wow.
And that's where the importance of the hydrostatic test comes, because the hydrostatic test is really focusing on the quality of these waste pipes.
Okay.
Not just not just cast iron, mostly cast iron. Most people are going to get hydrostatic test because of cast iron, but you can do a hydrostatic test on ABS and PVC too.
Okay.
Let's talk about ABS. Did you spell out the acronym for ABS?
No, I did not.
Okay, it's a very difficult word.
Yeah, I think I searched it up and it was just so complicated. I was like, I don't want to read that.
You want to be that guy
Yeah.
on the podcast. It's like, and then some like engineer's gonna call us and be like, y'all don't know what you're talking about.
Y'all pronouncing everything wrong.
Yeah, bunch of noobs. Okay, so ABS stands, and let's sound it out. Acrylonitrile, butadiene, styrene. None of that sounds healthy for you.
No.
And as EC's mentioned, it is coated in BPA, which is a carcinogen. But the good news is we're not getting our drinking water out of the ABS pipe. Yeah. So you really don't need to worry if you have a house that has ABS about the cancer situation.
Yeah.
That's not what you need to worry about. ABS is less expensive. It's easier to install and fix than cast iron. The smooth interior of ABS, because it is plastic, never corrodes. And there's no worries related to rust, rot, or clogs from corrosion because there's none of that rust buildup or channeling that happens in the ABS pipe.
Yeah.
But if you live in a city or a state that has high humidity, so the Deep South, Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Louisiana, and Houston, Texas, humidity is not ABS's friend. And here's the funny thing with ABS. When ABS gets installed, it needs to go in the ground immediately. It cannot sit outside.
Oh,
if it sits outside in the humidity will eat it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but it's not noticeable.
Okay.
So say you're on a build site and they have ABS brought in on a truck and they're like, well, we'll deal with that tomorrow. So they leave the ABS out overnight. It's the middle of summer, which is here in Houston, 100% humidity.
Yeah.
That humidity is eating away at the ABS pipe all night, but it doesn't look like it. So they're still going to put it in the ground, but once you get that water and waste flowing through it, cracks and all sorts of terrible things start to happen. So ABS pipes do not like humidity, and the humidity can also cause it to like mold. I don't want to say mold, but just like it, I don't really know how to describe it. It just eats it, if that makes sense. So now, PVC. Why is PVC a good alternative to both cast iron and ABS? Here in Houston and any other deep south state that has high humidity, PVC has been shown to be resistant to high humidity.
Yeah.
So ABS is much more malleable. ABS is actually the better pipe for removing waste in a neutral environment. So if you live in Colorado where there's no humidity, great. You might even have cast iron pipes with no problem, depending on how hard your water is. It's this humidity in the deep south that we have that's so bad. So the PVC pipe is basically just humidity resistant, which is why you want to use it in a humid environment. The smooth interior of the pipe also prevents the formation of deposits and odor-producing bacteria. So if you do have some sort of malfunction in your sewer pipes, you're less likely to get that sewer smell backlash into your house. They're also resistant to extreme weather, which I've said. So flooding, again, that's a big thing. Cast iron and ABS can really be damaged if flooding is severe enough and the ground is moving or the foundation of the home is moving. And also, this is random, PVC is considered to be fireproof.
Oh, yeah. I know that.
Yeah. It says considered to be fireproof. I don't know what.
Don't try setting your PVC pipe on fire.
Maybe don't test that at home. I don't know. And you said that PVC pipes tend to be white. In the waste, as a waste removal pipe, sometimes they're green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they're also much larger. So I don't want everyone freaking out here and looking under their sink and be like, oh my God, it's a teeny tiny PVC pipe.
Yeah.
My uncle's gonna visit for Thanksgiving. And I'm not pointing out any uncles. If I have any uncles listening, I'm not pointing fingers at anyone.
Yeah.
And clog the toilet. And that tiny little pipe's not going to be able to handle it. That's not the case. The actual waste PVC pipe is much, much, much bigger than what we see. Yeah. People get really confused there. And so, yeah, sometimes they're green, sometimes they're white.
Okay.
So there are actually 4 types of diagnostic plumbing tests that can be done. The hydrostatic pressure test, the static leak isolation test, the sewer scope, and the slab leak detection test. So we're actually going to cover all 4 of those in this podcast.
Awesome.
Now, the hydrostatic has 4 steps. This is the big one, right? This is what we've been promising the whole podcast, the hydrostatic. Yes, hydrostatic test. And if I describe this to you and you're listening and you're like, what in the hell is she talking about? You can go, we will put a link up on our blog so you can actually see the hydrostatic test. We did not do it. We found this video on YouTube, but it is the best I've seen as far as like explaining what actually happens in the hydrostatic test.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's a really good video.
Yeah. And there's nothing gross in it.
Yeah,
you don't see anything.
Don't get scared.
Yeah. So 4 steps. First, the inflatable test ball is inserted into the sewer cleanout. What does that mean? We have cleanouts all over our yard. Now, if you live up north, you probably have a basement and your clean out's going to be in your basement. Yeah. But if you live in a place with no basements, like Houston, why is Houston so charming? Why be the exception to all the rules?
Right.
Your clean outs are going to be outside. And a clean out is just this white cylindrical plastic thing. And the lid on it has usually like a square knob on it, which is how they unscrew it. So again, if you're up north, it's in your basement. If you're down south, it's outside. So they're going to open up that clean out and they're going to insert a test ball and a camera into that clean out. Yeah. And they're going to look for the clean out that's closest to the city sewer line. Then they're going to inflate the test ball to plug this main sewer line. Step 3, they're going to enter into the home and remove either the toilet or the shower, like, great thing. Okay. We're technical here. That's at the slab level. So if you are in the South and don't have a basement, it's going to be whatever toilet or shower is on the first floor. Okay. If you have a basement, it'll be whatever toilet or shower you have in the basement. And I know some basements don't have toilets or showers. And in that case, they might look at your utility room. Okay. So let's say they're going to use the toilet because that's the easiest one to just explain. They'll remove the toilet completely, and underneath your toilet is a hole. What? Oh. Yeah, I know. So old-fashioned. And what they're going to do is run water through the house through another avenue. So they've uncovered the toilet, and they're looking down this hole, and then they're going to tell someone to like flush a toilet in some other part of the house or run a shower. Okay. And now water is running through the home. It's going to encounter the clog, the test ball they've inflated on the main sewer line, and it's going to back up. Now, a quick aside here, it is not going to flood your house. The hydrostatic test has to be done by a certified plumber, at least here in Houston. Yeah. I don't know about the rest of the United States. But here in Houston, you need to have a certified plumber, which means they're not going to flood your house. So don't worry about that. A lot of owners freak out about that. Yeah. What happens is, as they're looking in that hole where the toilet used to be, they're going to look to see if water is coming up. And 3 things can happen. Either the water comes up and stays, the water comes up and goes back down, or the water never shows up. somewhere someone decided 15 minutes was the required length of time. I didn't make this rule. So
Right.
someone made this rule. So they watch it for 15 minutes. If the water comes up and stays for 15 minutes, your plumbing system, or well, your sewer, your waste plumbing system is perfect.
Okay.
If it comes up but goes back down in that 15 minutes, that means you have a leak somewhere. If it never comes out, that means you probably have a much more catastrophic leak. So I don't know if that if that description made no sense and you're like, that was just a bunch of gibberish.
It made sense to me, people.
So when do you need to get the hydrostatic test? Mostly when purchasing an older home. Although this is interesting, I talked to an agent who used to practice in Corpus Christi, which if you're not from Houston, that's about 4 hours southwest of us.
Yeah.
And she said everyone in Corpus gets a hydrostatic test because they're essentially built on sand.
Oh, because they're right by the beach.
Yeah, so their homes are moving all the time. But the general rule of thumb is if you're purchasing an older home, if the seller discloses that there are cast iron pipes, which to be fair, not all sellers know. Most of us do not care what our sewer pipes are, right?
Don't
Until
ask
they
me
know
about mine, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. But if the seller discloses that there's cast iron pipes, then you definitely want to get a test. If there's a large tree or well-established trees in the front yard, I'm not an arborist, but the general rule of thumb with trees is as big as the canopy is as big as the root system.
Yeah.
So if you have a tree that's overlapping your roof, then you can assume that those roots have infiltrated your sewage pipes. If there's obvious slab damage or foundation repair, here's the thing, people. When you get foundation repair done, those foundation repair company or that foundation repair company, no matter how great they are, they're only there to repair your foundation.
They don't care about nothing else.
Yeah, they're not there to check on your plumbing. So if there has been slab damage or foundation repair, get a hydrostatic test done because you don't know if those pipes have been moved around. And as EC's pointed out in her section, that cast iron pipe is strong but brittle. And if it gets moved, it can just crack.
Yeah.
Because it's just total jerk, right? The average cost of the hydrostatic test, and unfortunately this average is here for Houston, so I'll probably, don't quote me on this if you're in a different state or different city even, but the average cost here is between $250 to $400.
Okay.
And if the test fails, of course, you're definitely going to be shelling out more money.
Yeah.
If the test fails, then you move to the next test, which is called a static leak isolation test.
Okay.
Now, this is only done if your pipes fail the hydrostatic test. So if your house passes the hydrostatic test, you are good to go. Sell that house, move into your dream home, everyone's happy. If it fails, then they move to the next step. And this is when the inflatable test balls are inserted in a variety of entrances to the sewer system. So the first, in the hydrostatic test, they used the clean out that was closest to the city sewer system. In the static leak isolation test, they're examining the other cleanouts around the home or in the basement. They'll look at the roof vent and they'll look at exposed toilet drain. So they're going to be taking your toilets off some more.
Great.
Yes. Toilets are coming out, people. I don't know if everyone knows this, but we have a roof vent on our roof, for those of you up north, that expels our sewer gas. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah. So if that's capped or incorrectly installed, that's when you start to get that sewer smell in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, ew.
Yeah. So they're going to be running that test ball down that roof vent too. So the video camera is inserted with the test ball to map out the layout of the sewer system in the home. And by inserting test balls in those different entries, they're going to try to find where the leak is located.
Okay.
So the average cost here in Houston of that static leak isolation test, again, if you're somewhere else, it'll probably be a different price, is $150 to $400. Starting to add up.
Yeah.
Just a bit, starting to add up. Then we move to the sewer scope. Now, some people think the sewer scope is a cheaper alternative to the hydrostatic test, but that is not the case because a sewer scope does not involve flushing water through the pipe. So the hydrostatic test is all about water being flushed through the pipe. Nope, none of that's happening in a sewer scope. So while a sewer scope in some cases may give the same results, it's not always going to be what you need if you have cast iron pipes or a foundation movement or tree roots.
Okay.
The sewer scope can diagnose tree roots and diagnose foundation movement, but it's not really going to diagnose if a leak is present.
Okay.
Here in Texas in general, only licensed plumbers can do sewer scopes.
Yeah.
Although that might change.
Oh, yeah.
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 In other states, I know for a fact in Colorado, you don't need to be a licensed plumber. And some other states are unregulated as well. So just check your state. If you're in Texas, however, and you have a home inspection company who's advertising that they're doing sewer scopes, make sure they have someone who is a licensed plumber or a plumber technician on staff. Okay. Because they're only the ones that are really allowed to do the sewer scopes. What is a sewer scope? It is a camera, a giant camera. I mean, it's amazing how actually, and you will see one when we go to ASHI. Yeah. Spoiler alert, we're going to ASHI, the American Homens, I don't know what it stands for. Oops. That's embarrassing. Essentially, ASHI is a home inspection conference, and we're going in, yes, and the sewer scopes will be there. That's what I'm trying to say. Yes. So Isis will see a sewer scope. A sewer scope, yeah. That wasn't weird at all or awkward. So sewer scope is a giant camera on a tether, and it has a video screen for the inspector or plumber, depending on where you are. They go to the clean out again. We're going back to our friend, the clean out. They're going to open up the clean out, insert the camera down into the clean out. And they can go to pretty far. In some cases, your inspector or licensed plumber, whoever is doing the sewer scope scan, might just go to your property line. Sometimes they might go up to the city line. Depends on the rules and regulations of your state. The purpose of the sewer scope is to reveal blockages or other damages to the pipe system. It's considered much less intrusive than the hydrostatic test. Okay. And I'll talk about that in just a second. The average price for the sewer scope scan here in Houston, or Texas in general, is about $100 to $800. So again, yeah, that price is going up a bit. So I want to, before we get to the slab leak detection, I want to talk a little bit about why hydrostatic testing is considered such an issue. Okay. And why sewer scope scans are not. Remember, I mentioned in my section that when you Google, my first section, when you Google hydrostatic test, you get houses exploding. Yeah. Hydrostatic test. All right. Okay, people, hang on to your butts here because I have some knowledge to drop on you. The house will not explode from a hydrostatic test. Thank God. Yes. If the pipe fails during the hydrostatic test, that is because the pipe was already failing. Okay. The pressure from that test ball is not going to burst your pipes. Never. There's not enough pressure in that test ball to burst your pipes. This isn't like a NASA grade test ball here. You know, it's just being inflated with air, and it's only meant to block the pipe. It is not a blood pressure cuff. It's not putting pressure on the pipe. Okay. So if the pipe fails during the hydrostatic test, the pipe was already failing. Yeah, so something was already wrong. Something was already wrong, exactly. Here in Texas and in all cities in Texas, not just Houston, you have to get a form signed by the seller agreeing to the hydrostatic test because it is considered so intrusive. And that's why a home inspector here in Texas can't do the hydrostatic test. It has to be a licensed plumber. Okay. We are licensed, both home inspectors and real estate professionals are licensed by something called the Texas Real Estate Commission. And they have a form that the sellers have to sign, and that's outside of any option period contract. So go to your state. If you're in a different state, check with your state to see what requirements there are, because there have been so many cases of people claiming their house has exploded that there's more forms that a seller needs to sign. Yeah. And the fact that the toilet has to come off. So again, you need to ask someone permission, like, hey, can we open your clean outs and remove your toilets? Yeah. Yeah. So that's why the sewer scope scan is often considered a preferable alternative because it's much less invasive. There's no water being flushed. People don't think the sewer scope scan is going to burst the pipe. Again, the hydrostatic test is not bursting your pipe, but people feel more comfortable with the sewer scope scan. So let's head to our last test I wanted to discuss, and that is the static leak isolation test. And that one is, it's looking for a leak at a slab at the slab level. And what does that even mean?
Yeah.
I'm not a plumber. Essentially, if you are on a pier and beam foundation, which means your house is on stilts, and those don't even have to be big stilts, they can be little stilts, your plumbing is exposed to the elements and then goes down into the ground into the city sewer system. If you're a slab, that means your plumbing is inside that slab. So that concrete slab that they pour, it means your plumbing is in that slab. So the static leak isolation, excuse me, now we're all confused again. The slab leak detection test looks for the exact location of a leak at the slab level.
Okay.
It can technically be done by anyone. Actually, you can do it.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
Yeah. It involves turning off your water at various locations in the house. And we'll include the video because it's easier to watch home video than for me to explain it. If I'm going to explain it, you're just going to be like, this is long-winded and stupid. Unfortunately, if there is a leak in the slab level, the cost to fix that starts at about $2,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. So people, hopefully your house passes the hydrostatic test.
Yeah.
You write that first check and move on with your life, and hopefully you don't have to go any farther than that.
For sure.
So, but how do I know if I'm living in a house, say, and weird things start happening with my water bills? Could it be my water lines, right?
Yeah.
So how do I know if my water lines are leaking? First of all, is the water bill. When we used to live, people were getting huge water bills, and that's because the water lines were actually leaking at the city level and they were getting charged for it. So sometimes that happens, and if it's the city's fault, they will bill you initially and you can contest it and they'll be like, oh, never mind, that's us, we'll fix it. If you're walking around your house on a very dry, hot day and you are stepping in puddles of water, that could mean that water is coming up out of your slab. Okay. And also, if you have a warm or cold feeling in the foundation, and this is usually found with an infrared gun, and we'll actually have a whole segment, a whole podcast on infrared scan. But if you have a home inspector who's noticing hot or cold spots in the slab, sometimes that's a water leak as well. A drop in water pressure, that's an obvious one, unless you have galvanized pipes, right? And that's probably your galvanized pipe. And foundation cracks, which, as we know, can cause issues with the sewer lines. Yeah. Now, I think we can move to your questions.
Okay, you answered a lot of my questions.
Did I really?
Yeah.
Oh
no! But I'm trying to think. So you said you'd be able to tell, like, if you needed a hydrostatic test if you were already living in your house?
Yeah, I mean, essentially, it's difficult, right? Because when you're a homeowner, I find even myself as a homeowner, I'm almost in a state of denial all the time. Mm-hmm. So you're like, oh, it's just not working today. Yeah. It'll be fine tomorrow.
I know, that'd be me. That would be me.
It's a lot of people. And it's a lot of sellers too, because they're just like, well, I lived in this house for 20 years. It really wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. So I would say be vigilant. The biggest worry for me is if you were walking around your house on a warm, hot day and there's water around your house. That's a huge red flag. Yeah. Unfortunately, in Houston, we don't have very many dry days. Nope. We're the Seattle of the South, people. But yeah, so the biggest red flag, if you're a homeowner and you're worried about slab leaks at the slab level or leaks in the sewer lines, if you start seeing water coming up through the ground, okay, which is different than septic, and we will get to this, but septic, it's actually going to be sewage coming up. Yeah. Gross. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that happened at somewhere I lived before, honestly.
Really?
Yes. Now that I think about it. Another question was, should you always get a hydrostatic test if you're buying a new house? If you don't know what type of pipes are?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So if you're buying a house in a city where they were using cast iron pipes, great example is Houston, yes, which in the 1950s, as I said, they redid all the piping with the cast iron pipes. And by the way, people, I talked to the gentleman who helped lay those. Oh. And he said when he was put in charge of that project, it was supposed to be the pipe to end all pipes. Just like galvanized piping, they were like, this cast iron pipe is going to last until Houston falls into the sea, which could actually happen next week. Oh, no. With the way we're going here with the flooding. But yeah, so that didn't that wasn't the reality, right?
Yeah.
If you're building in a city where you can find out that they were using cast iron pipes, I would get a hydrostatic test. And where would you find that? You can find that in county records. It does involve a little digging and maybe a few phone calls.
For sure.
Because again, most sellers aren't going to disclose that because they just don't know.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Exactly. When we think of waste, we think of, is the toilet working? Is the shower draining? Is the dishwasher draining? Is the sink draining?
Yeah, you don't think about your pipes.
Exactly. You don't care what happens after it leaves your house, even if it's flooding, in waste and grease underneath your house. So.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So let's talk about the price real quick.
Oh, yeah.
And that's actually, so these prices are relative.
Yeah.
And again, if you live in even a different city in Houston, especially a different state, they might be a little different. So just quick disclaimer, these prices are all relative. Plumbers can charge an average of $45 to $200 per hour for labor. So just know that having the plumber come out you're going to start a rolling bill.
It's going to start adding up.
Yeah, just having him on site, you're going to start a rolling bill. The replacement for the cast iron pipes can be anywhere from $12.50 to $30 per foot.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Replacing the pipe underneath the house. So that means breaking up the slab to replace the pipe. And that's not just for the leak. So if the static leak, if you have a leak in the slab and they need to look at it, they're going to break it up and that's going to start at $2,000. If they find that they need to replace the pipe, it's going to get a lot more expensive, a lot faster.
Yeah.
So start replacing the pipe under the slab or in the slab of a home, start at $2,000 and just keep adding zeros or something. And
so basically it's very expensive.
It's very expensive. Yeah. If you're just looking to replace the waste pipes in the bathroom, so maybe you had ABS behind the wall and you just want to replace the pipe behind the wall to PVC because it's only the pipes behind the wall that have the problem. When they do that static leak isolation test, they're like, oh, it's in your wall. That's an easy fix. That's going to start about $600.
Okay.
Because they will have to break up your wall.
Yeah.
And now I say $600 and that's to fix the problem. That's not to put your sheetrock, put your tile back up. And that doesn't include the price of the plumber per hour.
Oh, okay. So that's
just to replace the pipe.
Okay, just to change it itself.
Yeah. Now, if you have a kitchen drain line replacement underneath the sink, that's a little bit cheaper. That's going to be $100.
Okay.
It'll be a lot less invasive than replacing your bathroom pipes. Yeah. But again, remember, you're still paying per hour for the plumber. So if you are going to repair your pipes and not replace them, just put a Band-Aid on that cast iron, which I wouldn't suggest, but it is a cheaper alternative.
Yeah.
The average cost for repair, depending on how many feet of repair and how serious the repair is, it starts at $226 for a cheaper little tiny Band-Aid, and it goes up. Just keep going.
Yeah, but that's not a permanent solution.
That's not a permanent solution.
Okay.
No. So, yeah. The other thing I want to point out before we sign off on this one is that the hydrostatic test, flipping back to the hydrostatic test real quick. I always forget this until the very end, especially when I'm teaching the class.
Yeah.
The hydrostatic test only goes to your property line. So when it's being done, the plumber should look at your survey, which will be in the seller's disclosure, and they're only going to thread the test ball and the camera to the property line. They are not going to test the city sewer system. So if the hydrostatic leak is actually on the city side, that they're not going to find that. They're only looking for issues in your pipe. That's different than the sewer scope. The sewer scope can go a little bit farther.
Oh, okay. So the sewer scope can get closer to the city line?
Yes.
Okay.
And it can actually go over your property line because some property lines are really short. I mean, I live in a townhouse. My property line is the exact footprint of my house.
Yeah.
I have no real property line. So the sewer scope can definitely just go farther for whatever reason. I'm not really sure of the particulars of that. And again, it might change between what state you live in.
Yeah.
So I think that's it for hydrostatic.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So. I think so.
Make sure you tune in for our next episode, which is stucco.
Yeah.
Super. Oh yeah, that is a good one. It gets a lot of gas. We have a great stucco video that we will make sure to post.
In the blog.
Yeah, Chris shot it like 3 years ago. It looks like found footage from the Blair Witch Project. But it's really bad. But it is a great way to see what type of damage you can get from incorrectly installed stucco.
Yeah,
so
it's scary.
Yeah, I cannot wait to talk to you about stucco. Let's do some sources and some credits.
Okay.
Our intro, that quote I did in the introduction, is by Lewis Mumford, who wrote The City in History in 1961. So that explains why it's so stiff and academic, but it's still pretty good. Mm-hmm. Our music credit is Kevin MacLeod of Incontech. I think I said that right.
Yep, that was correct.
The main source credit for the history is a book called At Home by Bill Bryson. And make sure, for all of you out there, to check us out on YouTube at A Action Home Inspection Group Houston, on Facebook, and on Instagram at homeinspector_Texas.
Yeah, and all the sources will be on our blog, on our website. So if any of you all are wondering where we got this information from, it's real.
All right, and we will talk to you. We will talk to you next time about stucco.
Yeah.
Can't wait. All right, I think that was successful.
That one was actually like 50 minutes.
Good. That's a good amount of detail. All right, let me end this. Aw, someone said looking good.
Oh, that's Ernest.
Oh my God.
He was watching it. I was like, who said that? I was like, oh.
Okay, well, for those of you watching on YouTube, right there. For those of you watching on YouTube, thanks for watching. We'll be back in what day?
Or 2 weeks.
Right? 2 weeks. Yeah, we'll be back in 2 weeks. On the 22nd, actually. No, on the 14th.
Yeah,
we'll be back on November 14th with stucco. And for those of you on Facebook, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back again on the 14th.
Yeah, and if you haven't heard our first episode, it's live now.
Oh, yes, that's right. Our first episode is up and live, and we will be promoting that on our Instagram. So homeinspector_Texas. All right. See ya. Oh, God.
I think it's from that was funny.